A very good evening to the respected chairpersons and all present here. I am going to present a case report of intra-abdominal ectopic pregnancy presenting as sudden death. Starting with the case report, this was a case of a 35-year-old pregnant woman who was brought to the Department of Lok Nayak Hospital mortuary for post-mortem examination. On history, she was married for 2 years, and this was her first pregnancy with 7 months amenorrhea. Her conception was not medically assisted. On the fatal day, that is 31st August 2009, she developed sudden pain, abdomen, diarrhea and breathlessness. She was taken to the emergency of Lady Hardinge Medical College, where she was declared as brought in dead. There was also an allegation by her parents that she was subjected to assault prior to her death. Therefore, a magisterial inquest was conducted. On further history, we found that she was going regular antenatal checkup at a government-approved center, and the last visit was on 22nd August 2009. Throughout her pregnancy, she regularly complained of pain abdomen, loose stools, for which she was given symptomatic treatment. She had also done an ultrasound abdomen at about 3 months of gestation, where nothing unusual was diagnosed, but a pregnancy with single live fetus was diagnosed. There was no history of bleeding per vaginum throughout her pregnancy, and there were no previous history of PID, that is pelvic inflammatory disease, tuberculosis, gynecological surgery or heart diseases, which are the causes of ectopic pregnancy. So this was the ultrasound scan, which is very unclear, and we are not able to make out any clear picture from this. Then she was brought to Lok Nayak Hospital for postmortem examination. On external examination, this was a dead body of an adult female with obvious distension of the abdomen. There was slight congestion of the face. There was no external injury over body or around her genitalia region. Now, on opening the abdomen, on internal findings, this we can see the thin layer of peritoneum which is still intact, and underlying there is a black mass. And the lungs, which can be seen on the upper part on the left-hand side, has been pushed up due to the growing fetus. Now, on removing the peritoneum, this was the underlying mass of clot which was found. This is a similar picture of the clot. The blood clot, it weighed around 1314 grams. Now, on removal of the clot, we can see there was a gestational sac lying freely in the peritoneal cavity, which was closely opposed to the mesenteries, the mesocolon of ascending colon, and the medial wall of cecum. So this was an intra-abdominal pregnancy, which is very, very rare and very unique finding was found. The fetus, you can see, was found partially extruded through a rent in the gestational sac. This is similar pictures. Then on finding out the age of the fetus through all the parameters, it was about 5 months fetus. That means it was quite an advanced pregnancy. The fetus had survived in the abdomen for quite a long time, for about 5 months. Then this was the placenta, which was found loosely attached to the posterior and fundal walls of the serosal surface of the uterus, which could be easily detached from the sites of attachment. The placental weight was around 320 grams. This was the female genital tract, which has been removed, excised, and the uterus was that of a non-gravite uterus, that was non-pregnant. This is an intact uterus with normal size, and weight was around 135 grams. There was pallor of the vaginal mucosa, which is a clear sign of massive bleeding. And this is the superior and the fundal serosal surface of the uterus, showing raw denudation areas, which are telltale signs of placental attachment. The tubes and ovaries were grossly unremarkable. It was normal. And the endometrial cavity was empty and whitish in color. The myometrium showed slight hypertrophy. This is the similar picture showing raw denudation areas. So the cause of death was given as hemorrhagic shock consequent to bleed from placenta in a case of intra-abdominal ectopic pregnancy, which is a natural cause of death. Coming to discussion, now the differential diagnosis, what we should keep in mind when a pregnant lady comes, dead pregnant lady comes for post-mortem are commonly criminal abortion, a ruptured placenta, ruptured uterus, splenic rupture, and ruptured ectopic. So these are the cases which have to be kept in mind. And a little bit about ectopic pregnancy, as we all know, I think, is a implantation of blastocyst anywhere else other than the uterine cavity is ectopic pregnancy. Incidence is 2 in 100 pregnancies, that it is quite common. About 95% is present in the oviduct, and the risk of death due to ectopic pregnancy is much higher than normal pregnancy. With the earlier diagnosis, however, maternal survival and conservation of reproductive capacity are enhanced. This is the picture showing the size of ectopic pregnancy. The tubal pregnancies, ectopic pregnancies are the most common, but other, which are the primary sites, are the tubal. Other secondary sites can be in the ligament, like broad ligament, in the ovary, and in the abdomen. So abdominal pregnancy, which is our case, is a very rare variant of the ectopic pregnancy, and from the data of CDC, abdominal pregnancy is found in 1 in 10,000 live births, and but by the strict Studyford criteria, it is incidence is 1 in 85,000. The maternal mortality is 4% to 29%, and fetal mortality is very high, that is 75% to 95%. These are from the standard textbooks of obstetrics. So the fetal outcome, usually fetal salvage in an abdominal pregnancy is much the exception rather than the rule. Therefore, fetal demise is usually what happens, and whenever fetal demise happens, the outcome is are these, that is, resorption can take place if the fetus is small, and if the fetus has died after reaching a size too large to be resorbed, then suppuration can occur, that is, infection of the fetus can occur, then causing death of the mother also because of septicemia. Then further mummification of the fetus, lithopedion formation, which is calcification, can occur, and adipocere formation can occur, which is very rare. But apart from the fetal demise, there are a lot of instances where survival of fetus till advanced pregnancy has been found. Like Stevens in 1993 in his extensive report found that survival of infants born after 30 weeks was 63%, which is quite huge. And abdominal pregnancy with a full-term live fetus case. These are some of the examples of delivery of live fetus from in cases of abdominal pregnancy in Nigeria and China and many others which I have not documented here. So the correlation of symptomatology with postmortem findings. On the fatal day, she developed abdominal pain and breathlessness, which could be explained due to intra-abdominal bleed and increased intra-abdominal pressure, repeated loose stools due to close opposition of gestational sac to the cecum, causing possible irritation and increased peristalsis. Now, medico-legal aspects, and the cause of death was given as hemorrhagic shock, and since there was no findings suggestive of trauma, and it is also a well-known fact that intra-abdominal pregnancies are very prone to spontaneous bleeding and they do not need antecedent trauma, so the role of assault playing any role in this case could not be substantiated. Now, what are the things we have to see in diagnosis? On history, what are the history suggestive of abdominal pregnancies are? One is because most of the abdominal pregnancies result from the rupture of a tubal pregnancy, so there can be history of spotting or irregular bleeding, abdominal pain and discomfort at that time, and other symptoms can be nausea, vomiting, flatulence, constipation, diarrhea, and multiparous can state that this time the pregnancy does not feel right, and fetal movements can cause pain in late in pregnancy. So diagnosis on clinical examination, abnormal fetal positions can be palpated, the cervix will be usually displaced, the uterus may be lined over the lower part of pregnancy mass, small parts of the fetus may occasionally be palpated through the vaginal orifices, fornices, and identified as clearly outside the uterus. And on lab testings, anemia, transient anemia can be present, and unexplained increased serum alpha-fetoprotein can be found sometimes. Now, ultrasonography, which is commonly used for diagnosis of pregnancy, it does not always allow unequivocal diagnosis to be made. Oligohydramnios is common but non-specific. In some unsuspected cases, ultrasound findings may be diagnostic. For example, if the fetus head is seen to lie immediately adjacent to the maternal bladder with no interposed intrauterine tissue, the time a sure diagnosis of abdominal pregnancy can be made. But however, even with ideal conditions, sonographic diagnosis of abdominal pregnancy is sometimes missed. Now, MRI is seem to be more specific, but still there have been cases reported where abdominal pregnancy has been incorrectly diagnosed as placenta previa, or intrauterine pregnancy with degenerating fibroids has been misdiagnosed as an abdominal pregnancy. Now, medical legal aspects. This case raises a question that does missing intra-abdominal pregnancy during antenatal medical care constitute medical negligence? This is a highly debatable question. And can such catastrophes be prevented in any way? Well, maintaining a very high index of suspicion and to rule it out, though it is very rare, it should be well worth the effort. Thank you.